Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Laing. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Laing.
Welcome to Finding Certainty. Hope your Friday morning is going as well as ours is. I personally look forward to Friday all week long. Look forward to my next guest here on Finding Certainty, or as you may know, if you're following the show, every first Friday of the month, I actually do a monologue. Started in January, where I'm touching on different topics, all of which can contribute to this topic of certainty. Well, we all know that as we went through the pandemic, there was a lot of uncertainty. A lot of us were impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and especially if you're a small business or a gig worker or an independent contractor of some kind, many of us were impacted and in significant ways. We're still dealing with the impact of that event. Well, my guests today, Brett Perry and Sam Nihalani, are helping to respond to that impact. They've created a company, and they're turning some heads and helping a lot of people to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. So Brett and Sam, thanks for being here. Appreciate you guys taking some time and being on Finding Certainty this morning.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So I always start out the show hitting on a couple of reasons why I've invited this specific guest, or in this case, we have two of you, these specific guests, on the show. I mean, our show is focused on finding and creating and developing certainty. And obviously, while the pandemic affected many of us and there are residual effects from that, there are solutions. There are organizations and programs and others that are trying to help stem the tide and trying to help people recover from that event. So as I was saying before, one of the reasons I invited Brett and Sam to be here is that their organization is doing exactly that. The second reason is they both bring a unique background and blend of backgrounds to this organization, to this company, or this mission, if you will. And their backgrounds and their approach to this mission, I think, are things that any business can benefit from. Sam has a background in digital marketing, extensive background in entrepreneurship. Brett's a programming background, an operational background. And these two co-founders of the company, SETC Tax Return, have blended those expertises, those experience, and those backgrounds into a really formidable team. And you have to do that, right? Whether you're building a family, building a business, building a nonprofit, you have to blend different experiences and insights and backgrounds and expertises into one. None of us are good at everything, right? We might oftentimes have to wear a lot of hats, but it doesn't mean we're very good at it, right? And so that's the other reason I wanted Sam and Brett to be here, because I think they give some really good insights about blending completely different backgrounds, personalities, approaches to business, etc. They both have different strengths, and that is most definitely a part of creating certainty in our lives, is finding those synergies and building that tribe, right? Building that team. So just alphabetically, why don't we start with you, Brett, and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and what was your background leading up to SETC Tax Return?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in New York, Poughkeepsie, New York, about an hour above New York City. And I went to school in Buffalo. I was a Division I wrestler. I was a dual major in aerospace engineering and mechanical engineering as well. And after that, I got a job at a nuclear power plant. I was a nuclear engineer for a couple of years, and I quickly learned after sitting at a cubicle for a couple of years that it wasn't what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I always had this thought process that, hey, you go to school, right? Like we all did. You go to school, you get the job, and then you keep doing that. During COVID, I believe it was 2021, the nuclear power plant shut down. There was some political and there was some other factors involved. So at that time, I was like, well, I'm in New York. COVID's going on. I don't have a job. I'm going to move out to Arizona. So I moved out to Arizona. I had some family out there, and that's really where I started my entrepreneurial journey. I knew I didn't want to go back into engineering. I started doing some recruiting. I started did some odd jobs. I even for a while I was an Uber driver trying to figure out what to do. So I was
I love it.
self-employed.
Great.
I ended up meeting Sam and I moved out to Florida about a year later. And that's really when everything changed. I started in the insurance space with ACA, also with ACP, the American Connectivity Program. So I got really familiar with government programs and helping people, access them because the government doesn't always market these, their programs. It's our job as private companies to help them. So during that time, did ACA, ACP, and we stumbled upon the self-employed tax credit, which was pretty life-changing. We discovered that, self-employed people could get up to $32,000. And at that time, a light bulb flipped, right? Switched on. What we decided to do is start our own company. We looked at a lot of different companies out there. We studied them, we went through their flows, and there's a lot of great things, but we did see some friction points there. And that's really why we got into SETC tax return.
Right. I want to get into that because some of the things you guys are doing are unique, and there is competition, right? There are others out there offering this service, just like the
Right.
employee retention tax credit. A lot of people jumped into it. A lot of people took advantage of it. And yet you guys are doing some things that I think are worth mentioning. It's a reason you're doing so well. So let's come back to that, but let's jump over to you, Sam. Let's hear your quick elevator story, if you will, and tell us where you're from and what was your background that led you to meeting Brett and partnering and launching this endeavor?
Excellent. Yeah. I was born and raised in Jersey. I had a sports background as well. Didn't really understand what I was going to do, focusing on medicine for as long as I did. When I was in med school, I took a left turn and stepped away, decided to do a lot of in-person marketing and build up within a few companies, start my own companies, and then sell those same companies, specifically understanding that my focus wasn't on necessarily understanding a new concept and building it. I was more so bringing what is available to the larger public.
Right.
And
That's your marketing background, right?
exactly, yeah. So in the process of building out a few different businesses and trying to manage something that wasn't really within the realm of what I was comfortable with, I got introduced to Brett when I was heavily focused into digital marketing. He was in his ACA space. I've done a lot of things in the insurance, subprime, and pretty much anything within the larger scale performance lead gen space as well. And what we realized is we can compete with everybody trying to market, or we can really provide a software service that hasn't really come to fruition for a lot of Americans right now. So there's a lot of other opportunities that people have seen in the past, whether it's PPP or ERC, which you see a lot of fraudulent activity with. And taking that into consideration, we've built out our software to include direct relationships with the IRS for identity verification, one-on-ones with each client. So it's not just about pushing pennies. It's really about helping clientele understand what they're receiving and how they can make the best financial use of it for their personal uses.
Right.
So I'm at a stage with Brett where we're really focused on empowering call centers and affiliates to really maximize on their network and not just help them achieve financial independence, but also increase their own sustainability in the work that they do.
I love that. I have a marketing question for you. I think a lot of our listeners would love to hear it. As you look at marketing, digital marketing, how it's evolved over the last several years, is there a lesson or an insight or a tip that you would give to people to raise their performance, to raise their results? What would you say? What's the first thing that comes to mind if you had to say, do this, and this will help?
Well, I think that's a twofold answer. I mean, you can focus on the technology side of it, which is ever advancing. But ultimately, in my opinion, digital marketing hasn't advanced that far in however long it's been, because ultimately we're still using the same mediums, which is email and SMS and social media and direct mail. And of course, we've developed geo fences and direct to consumer marketing with those digital advertisement boards. But ultimately, what people really need to focus on, especially with the higher ticket sale items, is that human interaction. So understanding that it's very difficult to cut out rapport with a human, even when you're in the digital marketing space. So one of the main focuses that the digital marketing space I have seen personally in the past few years is a push not just towards having traffic go to a website, but also driving traffic to a phone call so that they aren't shopping around when they have intent, that they're speaking directly to an agent who can actually help them get through the process and continue to build rapport with them through a time frame, not just a one-off sale type of situation.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I mean, a lot of people talk about how AI is going to change the world, and it is, and how things are evolving. It's speeding up. People are some are fans and some are worried. I'm more on the fan side of it all, but I don't think you can ever remove that human factor, right? Whether it's closing, whether it's even customer service, onboarding, training, there's a lot of things we can automate and a lot of things we can incorporate AI into and technology into. But even ChatGPT, I saw an example the other day of somebody who had written a poem using ChatGPT and compared it side by a poem that was written by a real person. And there was a distinct difference between the two, right? AI is getting better and better. It's remarkable. But I think that human factor is really important. I think it's a piece of why your business is doing well is you have 24/7 customer service and you have these things incorporated into the business that are a lot of companies don't, right? And so, okay, so you have the marketing background and the sales and entrepreneur background. I know you owned a solar company for some time that you sold, Sam. I was also involved in solar for a period of time. Brett, you're the nuclear you say he's not a rocket scientist, but well, he is. He's not a nuclear physicist, but maybe he is. But it's a really interesting blend though between the two of you. And back to my earlier point, how different are you two from personality wise, background wise? I mean, is it oil and water? Is it are you butting heads a lot, or is it more, hey, we really complement each other?
Right.
A little bit. Hear what you think, Brett, about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're very different in certain aspects, the way we think through things, and Sam's more creative than me and has more solutions and might come up with a lot more ideas. And I'm more the analytical sense. When a new idea comes up, I'm like, well, let's think about this. Let's not jump to the next idea or the next idea. So it's this constant, not a battle, it's actually a compliment where these new ideas come up and we start focusing on them, and I'll rein it back and say, hey, what about this? What could go wrong? I'm sure I annoy Sam a little bit because I'm always bringing up what could go wrong, but I always want to make sure that we're on the compliance side and we're not taking too hard of a left turn. Right.
Well, it's true. We all have our different personalities, right? We've all seen the tests, like, the DISC surveys and things like that say we fit into these personality and these skill sets. And it's very clear. Some of us have crossover where we may be good at one or two of them or a blend of them all, but most of us fall into one or the other category. And I think one of the skills or one of the really essential steps in any successful endeavor is recognizing what you're good at, and not only what you're good at, but what you enjoy, and then finding those to partner with and collaborate with who are good at what you're not good at, right? I mean, I'm not an accountant. I don't like looking at finances and numbers. I've worked in finance for a long time, but I don't enjoy it. I might be able to do it, but I'd rather slip my wrists, right? And so that's something I'd rather onboard or offboard and hand off to someone else. And to your point, Brett, Sam has the creative side. You're more analytical. You're the engineer mindset. He's maybe the creative marketer that sells and branding mindset, and so forth, the idea guy. But you have to have both, right? Or else you'd be sitting in a room with nothing to do, and he'd be having ideas that never get done, right? Isn't that true? Would you agree, Sam?
No, I couldn't agree more. If you don't have a good implementer and someone who has checks and balances, then being able to find an angle to bring traffic in means nothing. And that's honestly the issue that a lot of our competitors have is they are able to bring traffic in, but they can't do what Brett can do, which is actually provide the service that needs to be provided for them.
Couldn't agree more. Anything you'd add to this? I mean, anything more from your stories that are important? I find it interesting, Brett, that you were an athlete, you're a wrestler. I've got a daughter who is a gymnast for the Oregon Ducks and a son who's a diver for Cal State. So we've got two Division I athletes in our family, and that is a commitment, if nothing else, right? I think you said you were an athlete too, as well, Sam, and I think
Fortunately.
in sports, being in athletics, especially at a collegiate level or even high school level, it develops a level of teamwork and a level of commitment and discipline and work ethic and so forth that I actually put the fact that I was a collegiate basketball player on my resume because I think
Yeah.
employers see that and think, okay, this guy has a work ethic. He's not going to give up easily. Probably gets along well with people. I think that's a really important insight. Now, Sam, what kind of sports did you do? Brett was the wrestler, but
I did track and field mainly, so I focused on sprinting and then team sprints, which is like relays.
all right. Our entire business is it's a relay business. Essentially, we call it PPG. We peak interest and then we pass the baton, right? And then we get out of the way. That's the G, right? And so working with companies like yours, we open the door, we hand off that baton, just like in a relay race, and got to hand off that baton smoothly. Don't drop it, or else the race is over. And I think it's one of the things you guys have developed that we'll get into after our break here, about what that transition is, what that handoff is, because I think you're doing it better than anyone else in the industry. So anything else you'd add? We got about one more minute until our first break here.
All I'll say is about sports. The best thing about, being a college athlete is I learned to fail a lot. When I first got to college, I was getting my butt kicked every single day for hours at practice. So it's the same thing in business. You fail a lot and then you get back up, you figure something else out and you improve. So that's really what I learned in sports and what I've taken, because every day there's a new obstacle and it's like, oh man, what are we going to do? Then you figure it out. Then it's the next thing and you just keep going.
I think it's a really important insight. It's funny because I look at people that I knew from high school who are now an accountant or a dentist or a teacher or something, and they've built great careers. But I don't see any of them that I feel have grown or stretched as much as the entrepreneurs, right? Because they have a path that's fairly straightforward. Not to say they don't have challenges and learn and lessons learned and so forth. But I think as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you are dealing with exactly that. You are falling on your face on a daily basis and picking yourself up and learning from it and moving on, trying to surround yourself with that team that will help you get there. But anything you'd add to that, Sam? We got 30 seconds.
No, I'm good to go. I think that Brett summarized it quite correctly. You can try as hard as you want, you can talk about as much as you want, but until you see what's going on, you're not gonna be able to improve.
Yeah, you got to be willing to get up, brush yourself off, and keep trying, right? So we are visiting with Brett Perry and Sam Nihalani. They're the co-founders of an extraordinary company that's helping independent contractors receive funding that's available for them. It's called the Self-Employed Tax Credit with their company, SETC Tax Return. So we're going to go to break real quick, but we'll be right back, and we're going to get into what they're doing and how they're doing it because it's worth taking note. We'll be right back. All right. So on the YouTube video, I say everybody gets behind the scenes. So the real story, Brett, were you any good? That's the main question I have.
I got good. My wrestling journey, for instance, in high school, I had a record of 9 wins and 18 losses. Well, my senior year, I had 46 wins and 2 losses. Took second states, ended up going D1. So some people just have that natural talent. The way that I'm built is I have to put a ridiculous amount of time and hours into it. So I wasn't good. And by my last year, I finally got to so-called good, I guess you could say.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I was a basketball player, soccer player. I did track a little bit, Sam. I did high jump because I could jump. I like proving that white guys can jump, you know.
And you could dunk?
Yeah, I was good, but I didn't do track in college. I actually went in the military, and so I played basketball for the Army and so forth. But um
Were you dunking in games, Patrick?
oh yeah, yeah. I could duck on anybody. 360, I mean, you name it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's funny because it was because of the Army, I think I became such a good dunker because I if you get tired in the military, you don't want to fall asleep in class. You get in big trouble. So I'd go stand in the back of class and I'd do these toe ups, you know, where you're in combat boots for hours. And my vertical literally doubled. I mean, I could soar. So it was fun. But so we're going to come back here in just a second. So I always do kind of, like I said, the first section is kind of about you and where you came from, and then we'll get into how it works. So here we go.
You are listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, we're visiting with Brett Perry and Sam Nihalani. They're the co-founders of an organization named SETC Tax Return. They have these diverse backgrounds, ranging from nuclear engineering and science and to marketing, digital marketing, entrepreneurship. They've blended these two unique and diverse backgrounds into one team. And I know you have additional team members. Don't want to take away from them, but we were talking before the break about how one of the keys to finding certainty in our lives and our businesses is doing exactly that. It's building a team, a tribe comprised of different expertises, different interests. In fact, I had a guest on a few weeks back. It's a good friend of mine. He owns a company named Find Mojo. And that's a great name for a company, right? And what they do is they survey similar to the DISC survey and some of the other skill and personality surveys, but their survey focuses on motivators. Okay, so there's about 120 question survey. It spits out a report and it ranks your motivators. I think there's 23 different motivators, and it says which is most important to you all the way down to least important. Well, many people are surprised to find that money wasn't as high on their list as they thought it would be. Maybe family is more important, or freedom, or autonomy, or leadership and other things. So, but it's interesting because you need to blend the skill set and that expertise, but you also need to blend interest levels, right? Like I was saying before, if you absolutely hate doing programming, you probably don't want to be in charge of the programming, right? You're not going to last very long. Well, as you have blended together your team and your backgrounds and built this company, tell me, if you will, either one of you, what were you looking to accomplish? What was your wildly important goal, as they call it? Stephen Covey talks about the 4 disciplines of execution. They talk about focusing on your WIG. What was your big goal? And then let's talk about how we broke it down into the executable, lag measures.
Right. I'd say so. Our large goal is to help 1 million self-employed people receive their SETC credit. And then to break that down, how we had to do that is make the easiest, most simple customer experience to help them actually do what they need to do to get the credit. We knew if we created some complex system and had a lot of friction points that we couldn't reach that goal.
Well, I love it how you're focused on service first, right? You want to help 1 million people. And Sam, maybe you can explain for anyone who's not familiar with it, what is the self-employed tax credit? How does it work? What does it entail? What is it this funding that's waiting for independent contractors consist of? And then let's get into how we're doing exactly what Brett referred to.
Sure. So There's a lot of money that the government needed to supply the American people during the period of relief of COVID. And there were a lot of programs that the government put into place that allowed businesses and individuals to take advantage of that. So the individuals were able to take advantage of that significantly early on with the stimulus checks, and the smaller businesses to the PPP loans, and the larger businesses to the ERC program. And a program that was heavily overlooked was this self-employed tax credit program. And so a lot of what causes issues is understanding legitimacy to the program, which was brought to light through marketing from the ERC program, or ERTC program, as some people might know it as, but not through the self-employed tax credit program. So now that the ERTC program has come to an end, or has come to its diminishing period, we find a gap in being able to provide businesses their refunds where there's no fulfillment for those self-employed individuals to actually receive that refund. You see larger corporations like Intuit or TurboTax, they have the capability to do so, but they have no customer support, no automations, and there's really no focus on it. So what we do is we find the niche within that particular service to provide not tax services as a whole, but tax preparation services for this particular COVID relief program.
Right. Our company, Certainty Management, we did quite a bit of ERC work, and as anyone who's familiar with it knows, it was focused on companies with W-2 employees, and they could receive up to $28,000 per employee. It resulted in millions of dollars in recovery going to organizations all over the country. But to Sam's point, the segment of our population, which is a significant segment that was overlooked or was not included, was those independent contractors, small businesses, gig workers, self-employed individuals, and so forth. They were not able to participate. They may have received a PPP loan, but did not participate in ERC. And so when Congress announced that they were instigating this SETC program, the self-employed tax credit, there was a big cheer that went up from all these independent contractors saying, okay, now we can get a little bit of help too, because they were most definitely impacted as much as the large organizations, and many times even more. And so just to summarize, this SETC allows a contractor to apply for and qualify for up to $32,220. This is payroll tax refund. It's not just a handout. It's not a rebate or something. It is a payroll tax refund. It is impacted by how much income they made and how they were affected by COVID and so forth. We won't go into that necessarily in this show. There's lots of information out there. You can go to our website and learn about it. But let's talk about what other companies are doing compared to what you've tried to change, because I know there's a lot of them out there and a lot of them trying to get in on this, and some good ones, some bad ones. But you saw the problems, and we've seen the problems. We've looked at multiple SETC providers until we met you guys. And maybe, Brett, you can share with what are those biggest hurdles you're eliminating and resolving?
So there's a couple of hurdles. The biggest one is that a lot of these companies require self-employed people to upload their tax returns. Now, I don't know about you, but I actually don't know where my 2020 and my 2021 tax returns are. They might have to reach out to an accountant. They might have, it might be wrong, right? A lot of people don't know where it is. So we had that in mind when we created SETC tax return. And I thought to myself, if I can't do this, or I wouldn't want to move forward with this process, then how could I force other people to? So instead, what we do is we have people verify their ID. They take a picture of their driver's license. They do a quick facial scan. And after that, we pull their tax data directly from the IRS. So it's one, we're making that experience a lot easier. I'd rather be on my phone for 2 minutes verifying who I am and waiting a couple days to get that tax data back than looking through all my documents, finding where those are and uploading them. The other thing that's really important about that is we reduced and I'd say even eliminated fraud, because now someone can't submit a fraudulent tax return. We're taking the data that's that's real. It doesn't matter what anyone tries to submit to us.
Well, that's a really important point, because we know a serious problem with ERC. It's why they eventually put it on or into moratorium. Was the IRS said we're getting too much fraud, right? They had to implement measures. They hired more agents and other things because of the amount of fraud that was taking place with ERC. Speaking from a sales organization standpoint too, the biggest hurdle for us was trying to track down people's documents, waiting on them to get them, to your point, trying to find them, having all the pages we needed. They'd submit. I mean, I don't know how many times it's happened. They'd submit half of their tax return and not the other half. We're like, come on, guys, what's going on here? And so the fact that you've automated that and all they do is the KYC, the know your customer process, that's significant, from a sales standpoint, but also from a customer standpoint and from an IRS standpoint, right? Because it keeps you above board and above the line where you're not having to go back and deal with fraud at a later date. Sam, anything you'd add to that?
No, I mean, that's a major focus of what we do right now is trying to prevent issues that we've experienced in the past. I mean, one of our value propositions is when we first started SETC, listen, there were other companies doing it before us, and I'm sure there's going to be companies that started after us as well. And what we've done is we found the best and worst of whatever exists and figured out a way to avoid issues that happen with ERC as best as possible. And that's invaluable because we're not looking to maximize how much affiliates make to this program. We're looking to make sure that we connect as many individuals to this program while allowing affiliates to, maximize off connecting them to this program. It's not a money-making game. It really is a service provider game at this point.
Right. At the same time, it is a great opportunity for any independent affiliate or an organization like our own, like Certainty Management, that wants to be involved, right? You don't need a license to necessarily to do this. You don't need to have a gigantic organization. You may be a small organization or even just an individual, and you have a really extraordinary affiliate program. It's a part of this. That's one of the reasons we're working with you. I mean, everybody wants to make an income and make a living, but I really do appreciate the way you two have blended and your company has blended that service quotient, the ability to truly serve your clients well, and also creating an opportunity for sales professionals like myself. So other differences, if I can just mention one that meant a lot to us, it's a big deal not to have to check down taxes, right? I mean, that would probably top the list. But the second thing was, so often with ERC, clients would submit their documents and then sit there for months wondering what was going on, right? They're unclear. They wonder if they were scammed. They wonder what's the status. Did I get approved? And some companies do it better and others didn't do it very well. But one thing I really appreciated about SETC Tax Return is just the transparency, the dashboard that you've established where we're notified in real time. The customers are notified in real time as those files are progressing through the steps. Just so anyone knows, it takes about 3 to 4 months typically to get the funds in from the IRS. And while you're waiting for that, it's nice not just being in the dark, right? It's nice knowing where am I at and what's the status and am I progressing? And seeing that progress, I think, is really reassuring. It does create a lot of certainty for people.
Right. Yeah, I would echo that. That was a major focus of ours when we were creating SETC Tax Return. It's if I'm going through a system that I don't know much about, or if I'm going to give somebody my information, I need to know that one, there's a person there behind them. That's why we have our customer service and everything there. But two, I want to know when I progress in the state. Just like if you order something off Amazon, if they never told you when it was shipped, when it was delivered or anything, you'd just be sitting there wondering what's going on. So it's just, we took that same mindset. It's like, hey, when you're in our system, you have your own client portal, you know exactly where you are now, you know the next steps, and we'll give you updates the whole way.
Yeah. Well, and you guys have made your system so user-friendly. You've got videos that explain what's happening. You've got, the website really caught my attention right up front. It's very clear. It's very clean and simple. And I could probably do better on our website. I look at websites like yours. I think, okay, I need to learn from this. Ours has a lot of information. Ours is more of an educational website, more of an informational website than a marketing site. But still, it's just really clean and streamlined and simple and clear. And I think customers appreciate that. And then you walk them through the process. You get collect their tax information. You let them know what they're qualified for. It's a very simple process to get up and going and pick an option of how to pay for it and so forth. One of the nice things about SETC is that you know you have money coming, and so you're not writing a check hoping something happens. You have a guaranteed amount that you're going to receive. You guys know, and with your dashboard, you're able to tell that customer exactly what they're going to receive as a refund. And I know with ERC sometimes it was even more because they paid a little bit of interest while you're waiting. But that's good. I say all the time, one of the secrets of certainty is having answers to your questions. And if you're working with a company that's providing those answers before you even ask for them and providing transparency, that's very reassuring for both a customer and a sales organization like ourselves.
Yeah,
One of
Good add.
one of the things that really allows us to focus on building our website so beautifully and focusing on the automations and the communication with the IRS is because we work with people just as yourself who actually understand and have a history of dealing with clientele, historically speaking, to give them the best service possible as well. So our system is really quite possible based off of the partnerships that we do create with people just as yourself. Otherwise, we would be stuck in positions like other larger corporations that don't have the ability to do the sales training and really take care of making sure that their affiliates or who are really driving the sales and the service provider aspect of it to a encouraged point where they want to help more people. So it really wouldn't be possible without both sides of this.
Unquestionably. We are up against our next break, but I think of it as a pie. I was just talking about this with my team yesterday, and we all have a piece, maybe a quarter of that pie that we're contributing, right? We have the relationships, we're the sales organization. You're the operational team. You're providing that service. The customer is obviously bringing their data and applying for this refund, which we all benefit in the process. And then the IRS or the Congress, federal government is providing those funds. So you need all four of those pieces. Talking about building a tribe and bringing together different expertises, we all need to do our part. And when we do, this can work beautifully. So we are going to go to break, visiting with Brett Perry and Sam Nihalani from SETC Tax Return. Don't go away. We'll be right back. All right, we're clear.
awesome.
So, Sam, were you any good? That's my question. Were you slow or were you fast?
I was very fast, but I had a lot of a problem tendencies, so they decided to make a martyr out of me.
Problem tendencies, as in you were too busy talking to the cheerleaders, or
Oh, that would not have been the problem. No, I have a lot of pride with track. It gave me a lot of structure in my life, and I'll never forget like needing to show up at a certain time and having to respect your teammates because ultimately you can't win without them at certain points.
yeah,
And then we were, when you get to college, everything happens, and just because you're pompous and you know that you're going to help them win the championship doesn't mean that you can go off and start, doing some sort of like side business or playing beer pong at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's a very quick reality check.
yeah, it's a little bit what college is all about, right? We either figure it out and get that reality check and wake up and embrace it, or some people, that takes them another 10 or 20 years. But I think the 20 percenters at least come out of college and think that changed my life, right?
Oh yeah.
It did, yeah.
College is a big wake up call. I remember the first time I was in a chemistry class and I was pretty cocky because I thought I was, smart in high school. And my first test grade I got back was a 50. So I very quickly learned from that that I had to study.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Right, we're coming back in 10. Here we go.
They see our video, or is that just us?
They can see our video.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Welcome back to Finding Certainty. Hopefully it's your favorite hour of the week, as it is ours. I look forward to it because I get to start out Friday on the show, and then I usually wrap up the week, and then it's the weekend, So it's interesting because being a live radio host has been a really incredible experience for me, mostly because I have to show up on a weekly basis and perform at a high level. I can't show up late. I can't be half asleep through it. I even can't stumble over my words. I try not to, right? And it's interesting because whether you're doing a radio show like this, you're building a relationship, you're parenting, you're building a business, you have to show up. Brett was talking earlier about how the success in business is a composition and a compilation of failures. Anyone will tell you that. Most successful CEOs have gone through devastating loss, bankruptcy, multiple attempts at success. And in the process, they're learning and getting smarter and finding mentors and so forth. Tell me, you guys, do you have a mentor or a coach or someone that's helping you in this process that you'd like to do a shout out to here on the show?
Brett, you're up first.
I don't have a business mentor. I've learned, working with Sam, working with some other individuals, we've kind of helped correct each other and coach each other on some of our weaknesses. So there's no mentor, no billionaire mentor that's guiding me through right now. But if you know one, let me know.
I'll be yours. You can be mine. How about that? That'd be that's a good deal. How about you, Sam? Is there a mentor, even from your life, that you look back on, a coach or someone who helps you get to where you are?
I've only come as far as I have through the support of mentors, and I like to claim that I've done a lot of the things on my own, but I don't like to be alone in general. So if I don't feel like I have someone to shoot information back off of or just get work done with as more support, my dad has been there with me throughout the entire way. I've had a track coach that really taught me, the first thing he taught me was winter track builds character. So you don't know why if you're going to do track for the rest of your life, but at least you know that if you can run every day for 4 years straight while it's snowing 1.5 feet every day, you're pretty much good to go on whatever else you want to do. And then I've had some other people who, they've done the same things that I either want to do or would like to do or have done, and they understand that we can be friends while also providing me advice, and without them, I would never be in the position I'm in. I'm too nuclear for that.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I was actually referred to you by someone at another SETC company, and they were having issues and not processing jobs, and I said, if you were to go somewhere else, where would you go? And he's the one who referred me to you guys. So I think it's one of the steps to success is being open to that input, right? Open to feedback from whether it's a mentor or coworkers, employees even, right? You have to be willing to delegate. You have to be willing to be humble enough and open-minded enough to get that kind of feedback. I think it's one of the things that's interesting about your company in general is you looked at both what was happening in the industry, what was working and what was not working, and you said, let's do it differently. Let's eliminate this big hurdle, this sticking point of trying to collect taxes. Let's eliminate the fact that it's all digital. There might be a chat or a chat bot or something, but there's no real person to ever talk to. You guys have eliminated that, right? You've created an organization that's eliminated most of those speed bumps that I can see that has been a bit of a challenge in this industry. As you talk about this goal, Brett, of having, or Sam, of having helping 1 million customers receive their self-employed tax credit, that is millions and millions of dollars being infused back into businesses and families and communities and so forth. And when you realize that, even with a million people, there's millions of self-employed people out there, right? But even with just a million, what gets me excited is the domino effect that can come from that, right? How many businesses could you save with even a $25,000 refund, who are on the verge of going out of business? How many marriages can you help? I mean, the list goes on. I talk about domino effects a lot, right? There's ripple effects. What gets you excited about what you guys are doing? Either one of you, feel free to answer.
I mean, the first thing that gets me excited, Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's like at least 20 million people, if I'm not mistaken. It's not even 1 million people. So off rip.
Oh yeah, there's millions of independent.
So we're 50 million self-employed individuals. So I set that goal at the 1 million because it's our job, and the hard job is educating people. There's, I'd say, less than 10% from all the numbers and stats that we've looked at even know about SETC and the self-employed tax credit. So what gets me excited is that we're sharing information and we're helping real people that will make a difference in their life. We're not giving out a lottery ticket. It's something that they deserve. I mean, they were affected by COVID. All of us felt that we probably would have made more money or could have had, better lives. There's a lot of things that would have went in a more positive direction if COVID didn't happen. So if we could give a little support and help them claim what's theirs, that's what gets me excited.
Yeah, it's really just a hand up, right? It's just a shot in the arm, right? There's a lot of great entrepreneurs and gig workers and others just trying to make a living and trying to make a difference. And a lot of the time we just need a boost. And that's what the SETC can do. Sam, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, not at all. Even more so, we're not just helping people with just this SETC program. Now that we're helping people with this program, perhaps we've already been in touch with these people beforehand, whether it's through digital marketing or through in-person tactics. But now we're helping them more so. And so the new people that are getting introduced into our ecosystem for the first time, they're going to start to realize that we're not going to burn them, or we're not going to sell their data to 100 different people and hope that we make a quick buck off of them. We really are going to understand the different necessities that we can help them with, or the different gaps in their life that we have programs for, we can connect them with, and we'll continue to help them throughout their entire lifetime. We're not going to just, step in, step out in this SETC program. We're creating a community just like those crypto guys back a few years ago were talking about all this provenance if you bought the digital asset. Well, how about you work with us so we can provide you with that same type of value if you were to buy a quote unquote digital asset, which would be the same thing as a service that we can provide. So what was really important to me is that we're creating a community where we can continue to talk to these people, continue to figure out what they need, and then continue to build programs and systems, and hopefully one day communicate that to the government programs and lobby for the people that really do need the help as well.
Well, you're speaking my language now, Sam. That's exactly our story, where we started with one product line. Now we have 7 divisions. SETC and any sort of recovery is just one of those divisions. We have benefits and cost reduction and energy savings and so forth. That's exactly, our mission. We want to continue to bring value, what we call certainty, into our customers' lives. And I know that resonates with you guys. That's why we're working together, right? So we're kindred spirits, if you will. Anything you'd add, Brett or Sam, before we wrap up? We are approaching the end of the show. We got a few more minutes, so.
I had a quick question for Mr. Laing that I think is important. I mean, besides the fact that I'd love to hear some questions from the listeners, it's important for me to also understand. I'm not a avid listener to Voice America. I am now for sure, because I really understand the value of it. But how do the conversations between what we're experiencing today might differ from the conversations that you have on the other radio show or the other hours?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people don't know this, but Voice America is the largest internet protocol broadcasting company in the world. They have over 500 live talk shows broadcast in 140 countries. And there's millions and millions of people listening to Voice America at any time throughout the day, 24/7. I was excited to find out not long ago that Finding Certainty is one of the fastest growing shows on the network. And I think it's because of what we focus on, right? It's because of our topic, right? We did a Google search a little while back and searched the word uncertainty, and there were tens of thousands of hits in media just in the last 24 hours, right? Tens of thousands. So there's a lot of uncertainty out there. There's a lot of people that are dealing with things. Now I'm here in Utah this week visiting my dad. He's in a wheelchair. My mom had emergency surgery on Wednesday. They're dealing with uncertainty this week, right? It was scary. I mean, she's going to be okay, which is great, but life is just like that, right? And so how the conversations differ, I think there's all kinds of shows on Voice America. Some are focused on life and on business, and others on science and so forth and so on. There's a wide variety of those shows. But the theme that runs through them, in my experience, is they're all looking for ways to improve. They're all looking for ways to get better at what they do, to understand things better, or to improve relationships and tactics and approaches and so forth. Just as you guys did when you came on the scene, you said, how can we improve this self-employed tax credit, this tax credit recovery business? There are other tax credits out there. There's R&D credits and other things like that. We've talked about the corporate benefits initiative, where people can apply and get 15 different free benefits paid for by Congress. It's designed to help customers get healthy today so we pay less for Medicare tomorrow. But it's all about trying to improve, right? In the last couple of minutes here, Brett, what's one thing you think you could still do better at SETC Tax Return? What's one thing you're working on right now I know, because it's a daily effort, right, to continue to improve?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that. We're always looking to improve. We've changed our questionnaire and the workflow that our customers go through probably 4 times. We've changed our website countless times. So what I'm focused on improving right now is helping people get through, first understand the information so they can make, the right decisions, but so give them enough education, but keep it simple enough, right? So we're getting through that, and then just giving them the easiest workflow so they know, hey, all I got to do is answer these questions. I'm going to wait a few days, might fill out some more information, and I see my credit amount. So just pinpointing where any friction point is, and then trying to alleviate that.
Yeah, and I've seen it improve even since we started working with you. I thought it was great when we started, but you keep making tweaks, right? Those failures and successes, right? We keep analyzing and improving. So, Sam, anything you'd add before we wrap this up?
No, man, I love working with Brett. I'm really enjoying working with Mr. Laing. It's really a gratuitous day that I texted Brett this morning that as well. Today's the day that we thank everybody and everything that does exist, and we hope to really help every single person out there and work with every single affiliate out there. There's really there's no more complex than you can get than that.
Well, and it's an ongoing process, right? If I had to say one more thing that jumped out at me about you, and you just spoke about it, is you're about that long-term relationship. So many people in this industry are in and out. ERC, they did ERC, and now they're on to the next thing. I love the fact that you're building a company with longevity. You're creating that community. I love that word, community, right? That ecosystem. It's not a one-hit wonder. It's not an in and out. It's about today, tomorrow, and the future. And so thanks for being on the show today, guys. If you're on the YouTube video, you get to see us while we talk. You do get a little bit of behind the scenes during the breaks, and we usually chat a little bit at the end. But thanks for being with us today on Finding Certainty. We know that greater certainty is out there. You can find it. There are fantastic resources and organizations that can help you get there, like SETC Tax Return. If you look at the episode description, go to certaintylive.com. You can look at the episode description, see the website, how to get a hold of Brett and Sam. And if you have questions, let us know. We appreciate your patronage and listening. Brett, Sam, thanks for being on the call today. Really appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Patrick.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Have a nice weekend. And thanks for being here on Voice America.
Thank you, Patrick.